Do you trust the promises of God? Do you have the faith of Abraham? Today on Gotheology. So this week's portion from the Bible comes from Genesis 12 through 17. And it establishes Abraham and Sarah, and it's kind of the start to their story, if you will. And there was a few things that I found interesting, but I really want to talk about the elephant in the room, if you will. The faith of Abraham. You see, this portion doesn't even really get started without God telling Abraham, "Hey, I'm going to make you the father of many nations. The father of the nations." And Abraham believed God. And Abraham goes and does some stuff like fights in a war, goes to Egypt, but 3 times God says to Abraham in this passage, "I'm going to make you the father of nations." And you see, I kind of want to maybe brush past the first 2. Okay? Just a little bit. Because Abraham is 75 when God gave him the promise the first time. And Abraham goes out, lives life, probably tells his wife, about this, and probably keeps talking about this amazing promise from God. Now, I am no expert theologian. Maybe I'm, overstepping a little, but Abraham was 75 and God told him this amazing promise. And Abraham believed and had faith, and it was credited to him as righteousness. And I wonder, if Abraham ever doubted God, or if Sarah ever doubted God. See, there's a passage, in this portion that basically Abraham goes into, has relations with one of Sarah's servants. And Sarah's like, "Look, if you honestly believe this is going to happen," Sarah was probably 75, at this time. It's been 10 years. Sarah's, 10 years younger, so she's probably around 75, beyond the age of bearing kids. And Sarah's like, "Look, I believe this is going to happen. If you believe this is going to happen," maybe Sarah realized that she couldn't do it in her own strength. So Sarah provided somebody for Abraham to have relations with. And lo and behold, Hagar got pregnant. And Sarah might have freaked out a little, because she thought, God's promise wasn't coming through her, it was coming through her servant. Again, just speculation here. I have nothing really solid to base that off of. Just my thoughts and speculation. So Hagar gets, slightly treated bad enough that she runs away. And God is still faithful. Please do not miss this, okay? Because even though Ishmael was not the son of promise, God still blessed Ishmael, Hagar's son. God still made Ishmael, a great nation. And we move on to the next chapter. And God's at it again. Abraham, I will make you the father of many nations, and change your name, from Abram to Abraham. And at this time, next year, Sarah will have a son, and in him I will make you the father of many nations. This was the first time God clarified his promise, that it was through Sarah. And Abraham, depending on your translation, laughed or rejoiced. Depending on the translation you have, it'll say either one of those. Probably say either one of those two. But what does Abraham do? After. Or maybe right before. He says, oh, that Ishmael would live before you. He says, God, I kind of did your promise my own way. Look, I already have a son through Hagar. Oh, that you would bless him. And again, God reiterates that Ishmael will be blessed. It's funny because we get God says, your son that you will have with Sarah, his name is to be called Isaac, which is, laughter. Which is why I think, why I think that maybe Abraham laughed out of rejoicement. The fact that Abraham laughed, I think that it might be a better translation. Because it's not in this week's, but, when Sarah heard the news, she laughed out of mockery. And this portion ends with, the circumcision. And I think, we could have a whole talk about this. I think it's the circumcision of the heart that matters more than the circumcision of the flesh. But, like I said, that's a whole nother topic we could probably discuss. So, we are called to have faith and trust God. And God's promise didn't come to fruition for 25 years. How often do we trust God for that long? I mean, we have problems trusting God for, 25 minutes sometimes. But Abraham trusted. And I'm not saying he didn't have questions or doubts, but he had faith for 25 years that God was going to keep his word. How amazing, how awesome is that? No, especially, like I was saying, against today's culture, we want, God's promises now. We don't want to wait. We don't want to be tested. We don't want to work for him. We don't want God to make us into the person, where we will treat the promise, with due respect. But that is just what jumped out at me. I mean, we can have faith, but I also think, the occasional doubt is a part of our faith, as long as, we are seeking the answers to our questions and doubts. And once we have the answers, I think our faith only gets stronger, and only gets stronger, and only gets stronger. But more on Abraham next week. Until then, I'll catch you guys later. Peace.